Readjusting, keeping tension, all those things are looking good. But every now and then, definitely kind of have this unsure of how to start. Like you want it to feel easy.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Struggle Climbing Show. It's me, your host, Ryan Devlin, and here we go. We are just about wrapping up this year, 2025, nearly in the books. Are you ready? Are you not ready? Are you like me? And you're like, oh my gosh, the holidays are here and I am not prepared. For me, as a father of two young kids, the magic of Santa Claus is still alive and well over here in my house, and I got a lot to do. I think this probably won't be the last episode of the year. I think I'm probably going to take like a couple weeks off, or a week off. I need some time. I got to go out and get some holiday shopping done and just be present and enjoy the magic of the holiday season with my two little kids, my wife, my two dogs, my two cats, all the things. I hope you are having a wonderful and hopefully not too stressful holiday season. It can be stressful, not just for parents, just for everybody. Travel or end of year stuff for work or for school, or holidays can also be like a kind of a sad time for certain people, depending on where you're at in your personal life. So I'm sending a lot of love out to you. Love, excitement, magic, patience, whatever it is you need. And I'm going to try to be present. So this episode here, this Road to V8 with Kevin Cuckovich from Kilter, my coach from Kilter, my alliterative coach, Kevin Cuckovich, Coach Kevin Cuckovich from Kilter, is joining us here today for an end of year or really end of training block roundup. We did an assessment. So I just wrapped up a 9-week block on my Kilter full ride, which I installed in my basement, as you know. And Kevin programmed for me not just various climbing workouts, but also off-the-wall workouts. So a bunch of conditioning and a few different types of on-the-wall climbs from 35 degrees to 50 degrees because my board is adjustable. And we've done that with the mainline hold set. So just like half the holds on the board. But as you'll hear in this conversation, we're about to put on the other hold set, the auxiliary hold set. So I'm going to double my holds to nearly 400 holds. Oh my gosh, I'm psyched and terrified. But what did we get into in this one? Well, we did a reassessment. So we repeated the assessment that I did when I first put the board up to basically see how I've progressed or not. And as it turns out, I've kind of done 2 steps forward, 1 step back in certain areas, or maybe it's mostly forward, but it wasn't all just like positive news. There's some things I definitely still need to work on. We talked about the outdoor project that I've selected, or at least kind of narrowed down one of my outdoor goals for bouldering. We talk about that. We talk about my sport climbing season a little bit, and then how my training on the Kilter board impacted my climbs on route. And then we look forward. So it's a little bit of like, I guess like it's an episode in 2 halves here. The first half, we're looking back, and that's a little bit inside baseball. So my apologies if we lose you on that. It's like a very personal thing. It's just like a conversation between me and my coach on where I was at and where I currently am. But then in the second half of the episode, we set our sights forward. And that might be the more applicable half of the episode for just like the general listening public, because we talk about my programming for the first block of 2026 and how I'm going to continue to build power and compression strength and tension on my Kilter board in my basement, but also what kind of conditioning we're going to be doing. So finger training and general conditioning like strength training for the upper body, like pull muscles, pull-ups, also shoulders, so, incline bench press and Arnold press and some of these things. And Kevin talks us through that as well. So anyway, you can be a fly on the wall here for this coach conversation between myself and Kevin. And then on the back side, I will check back in, tell you about how I'm going to be wrapping up my year and then what is coming in store for the start of the year, including this strength cohort that I'm going to be kicking off over on Patreon. I'm psyched for that. So let's just get right into it. It is snowing outside. The snow is coming down here in Louisville as I'm recording this. It is cold, but cold is good. Cold is conditions for me when I'm out climbing on these rocks here. So I'm psyched. I hope you're psyched. Let's get started here with Coach Kevin Cuckovich. I went out yesterday and got on Bulldog, got on the Proj. It had snowed 5 inches here in Louisville, but it was just a dusting over at the Red. But
Right.
still, it was wet. There was like a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice on the top of it. But it's the first time I was up on the top. I like soloed up this like short-ish, I don't know, probably like a 5'5" slab or something like that on the backside with a rope and tied it to a tree and then lowered myself down. It was so many shenanigans, Kevin. Is that what bouldering is? Is
Yes.
bouldering just like endless shenanigans?
Bouldering, when you want to do something and it has like anything other than perfect conditions, I feel like that just happened. I remember this is years ago. I wanted to do something in Yosemite, and it had snowed 8 inches. And it's normally like the down climb. I had to go up to put the rope on it and to clean the top to get the snow off. And it's normally just like steps. Just so you're basically on like rock steps.
Right.
And it took me like 30 minutes to get up because it was all ice underneath there. Like
Right.
I'm like soaked because of my gloves. I'm like balancing on everything. I got up there. It took like 2 minutes to clean the lip and then another like 30 minutes to get down. And it like, I was like, all right, worth it. It's great.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to embrace it. I just need to get psyched enough on the project that's like all fine. It's all just part of the overall process. But it ended up being, to be honest, like I was like when I was driving out there, I was like, oh, this is just going to be such a blown day. But it was very valuable information gathering. It was all a little bit too wet to climb, but I had never been up on the top, and I discovered, to my dismay, that the top out's going to be, I think, a little bit harder than I was hoping it would be. So I don't know. The next step maybe is to actually try to get out there when it's dry and either have a lot of pads or still put the rope up or something like that and actually try some of those moves and the top out and all that. It's just like a little bit more slopey and a little bit of a kind of full value mantle top out, I think, than I was like hoping there would be like a glory jug up there, and then there is not.
The sandstone techie top out, it ends up being easier than you think because like you feel sandstone slopers from above them. You're like, these are terrible. I'm like just padding around on nothing. When you get your weight underneath them and you can get your feet underneath you, you'll just like pull them out and have a better time. Sandstone top outs, granite top outs, like they seem way more intimidating than they actually are until you like actually get up there, like run it a couple times.
I'll trust you. Well, to be continued on that, but this conversation here, the main objective here is to focus on our training that we've been going through for the last few months here. We've done now kind of 2 blocks in essence, because while we were waiting for my board to arrive and for me to get around to actually building the adjustable wall and all of those shenanigans, you had me doing like a conditioning block. And then once the board was up, we did a block that we're now coming to the conclusion of training kind of between 40 and 50 degrees and a few different main focuses. We did kind of a volume focus where we did 10 problems, 3 attempts with 3 minutes rest in between. And then we did more recently, more of a projecting 3 pairs of 2 problems. So 6 problems total, max of 6 attempts per pair. So 18 attempts in those sessions. And, you know, I guess the main purpose of this conversation here is for me to understand where you think I'm at, where we're going. And then for the listener who's tuning in right now, hi listener, for them to try to understand where my progress has been, where I've stalled, where I've maybe gone backwards, where I've gone forwards. And so really just dissecting what the past few months have looked like through your eyes as a coach, as well as a very seasoned kilter climber. And then we can talk about where we're going next. So we did an assessment. So for the listener, Kevin and I met a couple days ago. He video conferenced into my basement, and we went through the assessment that we did at the start of this kilter training block. So he wrote an assessment of problems. The assessment, by the way, wasn't like what's your max hang numbers or how many, your weighted pull-ups. It was just climbs on the kilter board on the home wall with the main line holds, which is what I've got up right now. And I haven't looked back on that assessment since we did it. And Kevin's programmed all of my sessions. And so I think some of them maybe we revisited, but most of them, as we did this reassessment a couple days ago, felt very, very new and fresh to me. So it's not like I've been practicing these problems at all, which I think is probably important for the listener to know. They weren't like rehearsed. You kind of designed it in a way to be a fairly objective check-in on how I climb various different styles of problems, I think. Is that a fair recap?
Yeah, I want like the original. So it was a redo of the original session that we did in August, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I designed that to kind of let me see how you do on a variety of different movements and holds. And then that was kind of what kind of influenced the harder things I picked for you as we went at the beginning. So I got to see how you did on the things you tried initially, and like the differences between, from what I remembered, of your first time and then this time after 9 weeks of kilter boarding with some breaks just to get you outside more as well.
Yeah, so we did, and that's a good piece of information as well, as we did 9 weeks of programmed kilter boarding sessions. Some of those, all of those were programmed to be 2 sessions per week, so at max. And then to your point, in October and November, when I was just spending a lot more time outside because of conditions at the Red, you maybe would peel one back, or you gave me a deload week where you just had me do like a few problems, but not like a full session. I was just kind of listening to my body. But for the most part, it was 9 weeks of 2 sessions and also some climbing outdoors. And then if you're new to this series or you didn't listen to the first assessment episode with Kevin, scroll back to that probably aired in September, I'm guessing. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And Kevin shared his thoughts on where I was at, essentially, as like a kilter home wall noob. And you gave me, if I recall, a couple things that like immediately stood out. And one was the kind of an excessive amount of readjusting on holds, and one was had to do with like hip mobility and like higher steps or higher feet. There were probably others as well.
Of the kind of the main things from like the readjustment, your readjusting is much better. Like you went to something, you stopped, you didn't like fiddle around with it. You just like, maybe you caught it 3, you popped it to 4, and then you moved. But there wasn't like, a lot of times the last assessment and like some of the other videos you showed me before, you would get something with 4 fingers, drop it to 3, get it back to 4, and then as you go, drop it back to 3 as you're going for the next hold. Like you stopped doing that. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
Your power through your feet and like basically getting a foot and not like hesitating to weight it, that got a lot better as well. That's maybe the 2 biggest things. The hip mobility stuff, that's slow and it's hard. You've gotten a bit better at high feet, but high feet are hard if they're not your thing. So that takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. On that one, I have been doing the 90-90 stretch that you sent me. And there's YouTube videos out there. I'll try to remember to put the link that Kevin sent me in the show notes here if you all are listening and interested in working on hip mobility. But it's basically called a 90-90 stretch, and you stretch it 2 different ways, and they're both wildly uncomfortable, especially the second one. Like the first one, you're like, okay, I'm kind of just stretching my hips and my glutes here, and then you like rotate and stretch the other leg, and it feels like you're just like bending your bones. It's such a weird feeling.
Yeah, it's a good stretch. A lot of it really comes down to like, you can stretch your hips, you can do all that stuff. You still need to strengthen it throughout another range of motions, and then just be using it actively to really do it. Which is, you're a taller climber as well. Like it's not awesome putting your foot in your face. Like it's just a good time.
Yeah, I've found it pretty challenging. And you programmed me a handful of problems that required me to do that over this session. One of my prouder sends, in fact, on the board was a V7. I think it was called Frogman.
Yeah,
I'll check that. But essentially, it required like a few different really open hip kind of higher step type moves as I'm like going dynamically and like latching onto some pretty small crimps, at least for me, relatively speaking. And V7 is a very hard grade for me on this board. I've done, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, which I'm very, very proud of. Like when we had started this journey a few months ago, I think, I was very much struggling on like 4s and 5s, and so I guess some I still do, the Jimmy Webb, the random, really, really hard Jimmy Webb V4 where you're like, that's V8. But like I have seen like a steady kind of from lower left to upper right trajectory of improvement where now I feel like any 5 that comes up, I've got a better chance than not to flash it. And then any 6 that comes up, I've got a better chance than not to do it in a session. And any 7 that comes up, I feel like it could go. And it may go in a session or it may go in a couple sessions. And again, there's outliers there because it's stylistic and some things suit me better than others. But that's been a big improvement for me since earlier on when I was like very proud and like fought really hard to get my first V6. And so now, I think you've thrown me a couple V8s. Those still seem far off, but in just a few months, I feel like I'm understanding this board, understanding how to move on it, and I'm definitely feeling like I'm more powerful and stronger.
Yeah. I mean, the way you were climbing when we did the reassessment, you were almost like too strong for the problems. You kind of did that thing where when you're repeating, you're like, it should feel easy. Mm-hmm. And there was like the first one you did, like you got into the shoulder and you locked off. And you're like, I don't think I can move. Like I can't grab the hold, and you were just locked totally solid off like your right arm and your left foot, just not reaching it. Right. You're like, it feels hard. It's like, you just have to reach the hold. Like but when you tried it the first time, you had that, like, I've never tried this fight. And like, you went for it and you like grabbed it and you kind of fell back and you did the problem. And then this time you're like, I think you're like, it should be easy because it looked like it should be easy for you.
Yeah, that's worth exploring, and I'll try to put some of these videos up, or I'll just post our whole, because I recorded the whole assessment with Kevin, which is like an hour long. Maybe I'll throw it up over on Patreon, and you can just see me like struggle on some of these. But that was an interesting thing that I wasn't expecting was like those first couple problems feeling as hard as they did, because I remember I like surprised myself and did pretty well, relatively speaking. I mean, an assessment isn't about, it's like I didn't get like money for sending any of the climbs or whatever. Like, well, like the point of the assessment was for you to see how to best coach me on the Kilter board. But I think I surprised myself by actually sending more of those assessment problems than I thought I would. And then this time around, you're right. I kind of went in there like with a little bit of swagger, to be honest, misplaced swagger as it turns out, because those first couple like smacked me down. And then I feel like I got into a little bit of a groove after that. But yeah, why do you think that is? I guess what did you notice, like just kind of takeaways in general from watching me climb? Did I take backward steps anywhere, or why was it such a struggle for me, do you think, on some of those?
I think it wasn't physically you are significantly stronger. Like you can watch those videos and see how you pull into things, see how you move, see how you weight your feet, see how you lock things down. Like what happens when you catch something, there's no drop on your shoulders. You thought it should be easy because like the first time you did it, you just had that fight of I'll just get through it. Like you didn't think about like how the move should feel. You just did the move. Mm-hmm. I think you were just thinking too much in the beginning, and then you started to just climb. And then when you did the things again, they looked significantly easier than the first time you did it in the assessment. Like once you kind of got over the whole, like, it should feel easy, because it never feels easy. Because like when it's a hard boulder for you, like I black out. I don't remember how it felt. I'm just like, oh, okay, I did this. Like you just kind of enter that flow state.
Like with most of climbing, it really does just come back to the mental side, like the mindset and how did I come into the session, but then also how was I reacting to the session as I was either starting to struggle or as things went maybe better than I thought they would. And in those first couple problems, for sure, I was a little bit flummoxed by not kind of cruising them. And yeah, I think that like I kind of got discouraged by that. And then, I also just had this like test mentality where I wanted to go in. I went in with an expectation, like I wanted to do well. Yeah. And again, that's kind of like the wrong in hindsight. And you corrected me after like a little bit. You tried to let me make my own mistakes, which I appreciated. But like after a little bit, you're like, hey, just so you know, like this assessment is not binary. It's not like did you send or not send, and you're improving or not improving. It's like, how do you look in these positions? How do you move on these holds? How are you owning these holds or using your feet? And once I started thinking about it in that way, I stopped putting so much importance on like trying to do the thing. And then I kind of loosened up. There's like one of those problems, I think it was called Sharma Karma, where you like throw out to like a really wide left-hand Gaston. And I was playing it pretty safe because you only give me 3 attempts. And that was the other thing too, because I was like, oh, I don't want to blow my attempts. And so I was playing it safer than if I had unlimited attempts. I would have much more kind of loosely and dynamically, I think, like thrown myself into these positions, which ultimately is the way to climb that kind of problem. Like if I need to cover a big distance on the Kilter board. But I also knew that like if I miscalculated and I missed it, I would come off on move number 1. That's like the first move you make, is like going out wide to this left-hand Gaston. And so I kind of was more static and like trying to lock it off. And that didn't serve me either. So like it was very much, I think it was just very much like in my head, I was kind of holding myself back from climbing the way that I would normally climb if I didn't have you there, you know, as the quote unquote test taker.
Yeah. Well, you could also see that change in like at the beginning, you would sit down at the problem and you begin to start, and then you would like run through every possible foot option and just like kind of try to figure out like, should it be here? I should back step here, high step, like, and you just couldn't make up your mind on feet. And then once you relaxed, you just sat down, picked your feet, and would do the moves. And you kind of stopped hesitating. I think that's maybe the most important thing with footwork, is just committing to the feet. Because if you aren't weighting your feet, it could be the right beta, but you'll blow off. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you just used the feet that you thought you should use or felt like you should use, you just did the boulders.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it really evoked this sense of competition climbing. And I interview a lot of competition climbers on this show, most recently Hamish MacArthur. You know, like these are people who are quite experienced in that like mentality of needing to climb loose, but also knowing like if you make a mistake, especially like if it's in lead, you know, there's no second shot, like you come off. And so I kind of had those nerves where I was like, I can't make a mistake. And then of course it was just like a feedback loop. It essentially made me kind of climb less confidently.
Yeah.
And the feet is interesting that you've been noting. I don't know how you watch me and you're like, oh, he's weighting his feet better. Cause like, obviously I'm not trained in that. And so like, I can't really tell, but no doubt one of the main reasons I'm able to climb harder boulders now than I was a few months ago is that I am putting more weight through my feet and staying on, like when we tilt the board at 50 degrees and keeping them on. But I still notice like at the Red River Gorge, I can kind of get away with lazy feet because there's pockets everywhere. It's sandstone. Everything's very grippy. And it's, real challenge. Like when I went out to Squamish, I was just skating around on that granite. And so, is there a way for us to continue to work on the foot aspects so that when I take trips or I climb on boulders that are, less positive than what I'm accustomed to out here at the Red, that I've developed that skill more?
I think it's really just repetition. And even on jugs, if you're climbing inside or anywhere, just push through your feet harder than you think, because there's really no downside to using your feet and your legs more on any climb, because they're the largest muscles you're going to be able to like use effectively. They're going to take a ton of weight off your hands, and it's just good for your core. But you can just get better at using them effectively and almost in some ways kind of develop a bit of dexterity and mobility through your feet and legs and be able to push and pull on steep in ways that are invaluable. I think Jimmy Webb is maybe the best example of someone who can use his feet and legs almost like hands. Like you'll watch him on the steep and he's not just pushing, he'll push down and pull over and like get his hips underneath him in such a way that he is like forcing so much of his body weight through his feet on something that's just improbably in the wrong direction, because he can pull with his hips and push with his like quads at the same time.
there's definitely been a load of problems on there that have required me to learn how to kind of pull with my toes, reach out, grab a hold, pull it in. And those, for the most part, aren't sensations that come naturally to me because of the sport climbing that I'm more accustomed to doing out here. So I think that has been good for me. And I guess we'll see that continuing into this next block then.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because we're going to add the aux for your next block. So that is going to be interesting because that adds a lot of much smaller holds. And
oh, good. I needed smaller holds.
Yeah. So those will be like a combo of, smaller hands, worse feet, and get you learning to use your hips and weight even more when the holds get smaller, but the feet are big. And then slowly just whittle it down to bad feet and bad hands.
Right. Okay, cool. So yeah, I've got the aux hold set here. I guess we can kind of, actually, before we fully pivot to kind of the what comes up next, was there anything else in watching me climb on this second assessment compared to the first one, or just kind of where I'm at, that stuck out, good or bad, and just in terms of what will inform how we program this next block?
I think the it should feel easy mentality, we still got to work on that. So that's, I think, one of the things you wanted to work on is a bit more projecting. So that'll be reflected in kind of your day 2 of the boulders and a little bit of the day 1. That would maybe be the only thing that hasn't been consistently better. I would say your footwork has gotten consistently better, readjusting, keeping tension, all those things are looking good. But every now and then you definitely kind of have this like unsure of how to start, like you want it to feel easy.
Yeah.
And then you try and then it goes away. But just getting rid of that, like right off the bat, being like, it's gonna always be hard.
This episode's brought to you by the Force Board. Are you into training your fingers? Dumb question. You're a climber. You're obviously obsessed with your finger strength. You're probably looking at your fingers right now as I'm saying this. And let me tell you, the Force Board is a huge step up from hangboarding. If you're not familiar with what a force gauge is, it's this little digital device that connects to your phone, and as you pull on a block or a portable hangboard, it tells you exactly the force that you are using so that you don't need to mount a hangboard, you don't need weights or pulleys to get the desired training stimulus, and you can track all of your data seamlessly and program your workouts right there in the app. And training your fingers this way, let me tell you, instead of doing weighted hangs, reduces injury risk and is just a heck of a lot faster, easier, and more consistent. I've been using one for months now. It is super portable, so I can easily bring it with me to the crag or to the gym for warm-ups. And then I'm also using it to train up my endurance right now, doing some 7-3 repeaters at 60% of my max, which is super easy to program because the app gives me that target line to hit on each and every pull. And as soon as I can't hit that target, I know my session's done. Boom. That's it. I don't get injured. I don't get overly fatigued. Hit that link in your show notes or swing on over to thestruggleclimbingshow.com/forceboard to learn more about it and score yourself $10 off your purchase by using code STRUGGLE at checkout. All right, y'all, just want to take a quick second here to tell you how I'm staying healthy and taking care of myself as I'm now pushing my body to the hardest limits I've ever pushed it as a rock climber. And the way that I'm fueling these gains that I'm working so hard to get is with PhysiVantage Nutrition. You all know PhysiVantage. They've been a sponsor of the show since the very first episode, and I've been a paying customer of PhysiVantage since long before there was ever a podcast. And why is that, Ryan? Why am I buying PhysiVantage products? Well, it's because they work. They're designed by climbers for climbers to help us climb our best. Every single day, I'm taking their supercharged collagen before I do like a little light fingerboard workout, like the Abra hangs that I've talked about here on this show, or before I go climbing or go to the gym. And I'm also fueling up either before or after a workout with one of their protein powders. It's like my sweet treat that I have. And the most important thing, as I mentioned, is that it works. Most coaches and doctors and dietitians are going to tell you that you should probably take in about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight every single day if you're an athlete and you're trying to fuel your gains. So for me, 155 grams of protein is a lot of protein in a day. And I love a whole foods diet, but I have to supplement in order to hit that goal. And I do it by using PhysiVantage. Hit that link right there in your show notes and you'll get 15% off pretty much everything over at the PhysiVantage store, or use code STRUGGLE15 at checkout to get that discount, and let's get after it. Well, I noticed that just in some of the things that you programmed for me, I've recognized something about my mindset and my discomfort with discomfort, if you will, where it doesn't matter the grade. It could be a V4 or a V8, and you've programmed me both, where if I don't feel pretty early on, if I don't feel like I can do it, if it doesn't feel like I can put it together or like enjoyable kind of linking of moves or flow, I kind of just want to write it off. And like you'll see those comments in our spreadsheet where I'm just like, this one just felt bad. I'm feeling like we shouldn't revisit this one or whatever. And on the few times where I've pushed myself to keep trying, and I mean, I would always try to do it, but like you would give me up to 6 attempts or whatever on one of the blocks that we did, or 3 attempts. I would try to do those. I would try to my best to not just like half-ass the attempts. And on the few occasions where I did like have that thought where I was like, maybe the first attempt I was like, oh, this one's just not for me, but I pushed myself to do it because I wanted to hit my required attempts, or maybe because I was sessioning with a friend and they were doing it or encouraging me or whatever. When I did do it and like pulled it together, there was a V6 I recall that was like that. I think there's a 5, 6, and a 7. Like I'll go back and find them on the board account and maybe share them as a part of this episode when it comes out. Those were like super proud sends. I just felt so rewarded by having it feel like I hated it and it was impossible. And then all of a sudden just like dug deep and stuck a dead point that I couldn't, like usually it's when it's really hard off the ground. Like if I can't get my butt off the ground, I like immediately get discouraged and I'm like, I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Yeah.
But when I forced myself to do it, when I did do it, I felt freaking great. But I still have this kind of friction with it, like being really hard or not feeling like it's going to come together. And I don't know how we can make that go away.
I've been bouldering for 20 something years. Like this happened to me last weekend. Like it's just like, that's bouldering. Like you get into this like curmudgeon-y state of like, this thing's not my style. I can't do it. Like,
right.
I don't like it. It's dumb. And then you're there with friends and they're trying it and you don't want to just sit down and like pout. So you keep trying it and you make a little progress. You're like, oh, that thing's amazing.
Totally.
Like, it's just like the number of times I've been with somebody, done it myself, tried something on a wall where it's like, oh, that thing's dumb. It's not my style. I don't like it. I'm not going to get anything out of it. Try it like 2 more times. Like you make a little bit of progress and you're like, this is the best boulder ever. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's nice to know that it's relatable, if nothing else. And then, I think that positive peer pressure really helps. And I have been sessioning quite a bit in the basement with friends, and that always helps. But even, when I'm by myself, I'll just have you in my mind, or I'll try to remember that. It's like, I think, for people who golf, they always say like, all it takes is one good shot to like keep you going. You have 40 bad shots in a row and you get that one good shot and you're like, oh, I love golf. And so that's kind of like bouldering for me is, it's a lot of struggle, but when I do like rip a hard move and I stick it, it's so energizing and so invigorating. So I'll try to, hold on to that. But I also think you've done a really good job in programming to give me some quick, like at least opportunities for quicker ascents. And that always feels good. But one thing we didn't do a lot of in this first training block was like real deal projecting. Like most of the 7s that I did were either in a session or in a second session. We didn't like continue to revisit problems. And I think that was probably good for my ego and for my mindset in a sense, because if you had thrown something at me that I was just going to like try the same move 30 times before sticking it, I'm sure I would not have been able to stick with it. But maybe now, like how will this next, I guess we can transition now. We can talk about like what's coming up here. So we're going to add the aux holds, which are, it's going to double the holds on the board. So right now there's 196 holds, and I think I'm adding 195 aux holds or whatever. So it doubles the holds, probably more than doubles the climbing library that we'll have to choose from. But what are we going to look at in terms of programming and angle and then volume and all of that?
Since we are going to add a bit more projecting to it, we're going to stick to higher angles because there's going to be a lot more things that are real punchy off the bat. So we'll basically stick to 45 and above. We'll kind of do a blend of essentially like what like a block cycle is for like some weight training, where you have one day that is a higher volume but still high intensity, and then the second day is like limit, more maybe like trying moves and not doing them, but like having a variety of moves on very different boulders to try throughout that. So like I would kind of equate it to if you were lifting and doing a block cycle for like training power, a really good version is like you stick in the 80 to 85% on your day one. That's where your weights are. And then day two, you're just at 90 to 100%, like 1 rep, 2 rep. Kind of do that with your climbing. So we'll probably do 45, 50, and 55, maybe
Ooh.
60.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
But so for every angle, we'll find like 5 possible projects. So V7 to V8, maybe harder. And then you will cycle through those each session on that. So maybe week 1, 45, 45, or 50, 45, whatever. More volume on the 50 day, still kind of like 5, 6, 7, a little bit higher, but not limit. Like you're going to get up a lot more things on Monday than on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the second day is. Sorry, Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
But then, go to 45 and you have 5 projects at 45 that are V7, V8, V9. And you'll try one for like half an hour. And then you'll go to the second and it'll be very different from the first one to give you a bit of a break. So maybe the first one is real crimpy. Second one's pinchy or edgy or slopey. And then kind of cycle through maybe 2, 3, 4 if you're feeling really good that day, upper limit projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then that'll kind of be the main differences, like still volume one day, but then just limit attempts. Like you might just try one move, rest 2 minutes, try that move again, rest 2 minutes, and then cycle through for half an hour, 45 minutes at a time, just for one boulder. And then
so
maybe
and on that day, so on the day 2 day, we'll have this list, and the expectation isn't that I get to all of them. If I get psyched on one, I could just make that the whole session. Or if I want to mix things up, I can choose problem 1 and problem 4 or whatever. I'm not necessarily like trying to follow any sort of predetermined order or anything.
No. We'll have a few kind of like warm up, just get you some movement in climbs for it to like prep. Maybe like 2 or 3 4 to 6s or 4 to 5s, and then you'll go right into like trying the projects. And it'll basically be focusing on 1, 2, maybe 3. Like, you could try one and be like, I'm not feeling this one today. I tried it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'll try this other one. You're psyched on that and you spend the entire time on that. That's totally fine too.
And then projecting, so not just trying to do it from the ground, but I can try to do links in the middle or whatever. It's just full project mode, so that the next week I'll revisit these same ones.
No. So then the next week we'll switch you to maybe 55 and you'll have a list of projects also complementary to that previous week. So maybe 45, there's like a pinch, a crimp, an edge problem. And then, switch over, get you to 50, pinch, crimp, edge. But we could also kind of filter in. So maybe at 45, your pinch boulder is V7. At 50, it's V8. So maybe that's your V8 pinch on 50 is that one from 45. But try and get similar difficulties, but different problems. And then just keep giving you that more robust movement repertoire that you kind of don't have as a sport climber, since you're still pretty new to bouldering.
Right. Yeah, I do really like that idea of carrying some over between the different angles, because just one of the benefits of having an adjustable board, of course, is that one can do that. And I did experience that in this first block, where like hot beers, I think, was one of the problems, where it was like a pretty hard V5 for me at 40 degrees, and I got it. And then you had me take it to 45 and it was a V6 or something like that. And I think that might've been my first V6 I did, but it came faster, if you will, because I had learned a lot of that movement at the slightly easier angle, if you will. And so I do kind of like the idea. I know you haven't picked these problems yet. You'll be doing it soon. But at least having some of those carry between maybe 45 and 55 or 60 or whatever we play around with, just so I can experiment with that benefit of having the adjustable board. And so for the listener, if you haven't seen my setup, there's some videos on Instagram and YouTube, but it adjusts from the top. It hinges from the ceiling and the bottom floats. So I can go down as shallow as about 35 degrees. It's a little bit steeper. It's like 37 degrees, if you will, when it's touching the ground. And then as I pull the bottom up, it gets steeper. So it can go up to 60 or a little bit steeper than 60 degrees. Although I haven't gone steeper than 50. So it'll be interesting to see like if we mess around with like 55 and 60, that's going to be like roof climbing.
55 is a great angle in general. I find that to be like just the hardest on the OG as well too, but we'll experiment.
Yeah, I remember talking with Ravioli Biceps, and he said he really likes the Kilter at 55. He said that's his preferred angle with the Kilter board. Of course, a lot of the Kilters at the gym will go up to 70 or whatever. So like there's like people doing like true roof climbs. But yeah, I'm psyched. Okay, so I'm going to get the auxiliary hold set up. That'll double the holds. That's crazy. I'm going to lose all the bolt holes that I was cheating my toe into on this first round of problems. Now I'm not going to be able to do that.
You'll find like, the little sneaky flag and post spots. It's good. It helps you kind of like tweak your body position stuff and be like, oh, I like my foot touching here, not, 2 inches to the left or a half an inch to the right. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, I'm definitely psyched for just, having double variety of holds is just going to be like a really kid in a candy store fun to play with for a while, but also this concept of having like a true project day is very cool. And so how long will we carry these projects through? And if I send one, do we bring in a new one, or am I trying to, I'm like at the carnival game and I'm just trying to knock down all the clowns?
Just generally the nature of climbing, if you send one, you're going to want to add another.
Right.
So you'll as soon as you do one, you'll be like, okay, I now have 2 projects in my list. And you're like, well, I need a third or a fourth. So when you do one, we'll just add one in general, because that's just always what happens. But I think we'll carry this through for the entirety of the next 9-week cycle. And it'll kind of also match the weights you do as well. But we can kind of dial it back depending on how the projects outside are going as well. So if Tuesday you do your session, you do the volume, and then Friday you want to climb outside, then we'll skip the projecting session for the outdoor projecting session, because you're going to be doing what the point of this is climbing outside.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up, because having just been on the project yesterday and feeling now the top part, I've got a pretty good sense for what the physical requirements and toll are going to be on my body as I'm starting to project this boulder. And then this is the V6 variation that I'm working on right now. And then the V8 variation adds like 3 or 4 kind of hard like traverse moves into the V6. So we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But when I was on it yesterday, it's clear because you're kind of working up this right side arete. And so like there's a right heel hook that kind of starts to follow you up the top, and aside from the first couple moves is just there. That's where you're kind of right heeling into it. And the right hand as well, aside from the start couple of moves that are like a little crimpy or pinchy, you're kind of slapping your right hand up this thing, and then your left hand is working out on some underclings and some side pulls. Anyway, it's like squeezing a refrigerator kind of to some extent. And it doesn't immediately come to mind as something that we could replicate on the Kilter, although I do have like a pretty thick frame on it. So maybe there's a way to set something on the right side of the board and actually like throw a heel like on the right frame of it or something. But how should we think about that? Like, how should we think about projecting? Like, now that I have a specific project, should we think about programming the Kilter in a way that helps me to develop the skills or the physical strengths or whatever might be needed for it?
I think like the best way to do this in kind of this situation is not necessarily a straight replica, but like a a better base of that movement or that crux situation. Like, so those, you talking about the heels and the slapping, that is just tension and like a bit of squeeze and also the readjust. So like that focus on like being able to be tight, hitting a thing and then not shifting, but just catching the hold and then saving energy to then make the next move without like regaining your position. That's going to be more valuable than like a right heel hook on the side of the board and you're slapping an edge. Like, cause your heels are already really good. I remember we had you on like a pretty gnarly day. I think I did it at 50 and you were heel hooking on just awful edges and they were staying really well. So I'm not really worried about you needing to up your heel hooking game.
Okay.
But just like that kind of fierce slap and not losing any tension, like that'll benefit you more than like a specific slap and not lose tension. Like being able to have that in any position you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, that makes sense. So as you're choosing these problems for me, you'll have that in mind, and it sounds like some of those will be reflected into the programming. I did feel like, now I've done 2 sessions on it, like the sorest I am the next morning is in my abs, which shocked me. Like I never come back from the red like sore in my abs. I was like really sore in my abs, my right bicep quite a bit because I was like, there's a lot of like kind of squeezy, like under clingy kind of like type of compression on that, and like my pecs a little bit, which I guess makes sense because of the kind of the compression that's happening there.
Like that guy.
Yeah, kind of like near my shoulder, like top of the pec.
That's great. That's also, we at least balance that out with like incline dumbbell, a nice little like pec minor.
Okay.
The outside core is hard to replicate on anything other than like a steep board, and it's always so much harder than like wall climbing in general. But it's like, it's a good thing you can build up through volume on a wall. But the best version of it, that activation, essentially like motor unit recruitment, is just trying really hard outside and then being used to it. And then it just will come back whenever you need it. I think like I basically stopped doing core because I have a steep board, and I feel like I get the most out of having like a fresh core the next day I go outside.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, definitely climbing like hard stuff, steep. Like I feel that when I do like a steep, hard kilter board session, I've got to like toe in or really like hold myself on a reachy move without letting my foot pop. I definitely feel that like activating in the core. Do you have a sense? We'll get back to the programming in just a second here, but this question popped in my mind about this specific boulder is that when I'm in these compression-y moves, like I just kind of worked the upper moves yesterday and I was on a rope and it's like a little more funky because you're not coming into the move with tension. So like it just kind of felt like pretty weird and hard to like just get in there and like immediately try to hold a position. But I had my buddy like spot me into it and I had it. And then I would like slap up and stick it and hold it. But then I would be like paralyzed because like there's so much tension going through every limb.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to move my foot up, but I could not. I was like looking at it and I was like, move foot and it wouldn't move. So like, how does one relax while also being tense?
It's almost it's a learned thing in a lot of ways. Essentially, like when that happens, you're just trying so hard. You're not just like squeezing, you're just tensing. It's like trying to do a pull-up, but being so gripped that you're also activating your triceps. And then those don't let you bend your arms. So you're just activating every single muscle because you're so like focused and trying so hard, you are just locking yourself up. So you eventually you get to this point where, not eventually, it happens pretty quick, but like you'll do the hard move and then you'll just be so focused on the actual things you want. The rest of your body is movable. Like you'll hit that, you'll make the slap and you'll be able to move your feet because you're not just like so tense in everything. You're just tense in the things that should actually be working for you.
Right.
It's actually like this kind of neat idea. There's a ton of research based around it, but basically, they'll have like lifters. They're doing a pull up or a deadlift or whatever like they stretch the antagonist of the main muscle that's doing the lift, and they get a little more power or pull out of it. And there's a few different, like, I guess protocols to it, but it's like, you stretch your tricep if you're doing a curl. You stretch your like quads if you're doing like an RDL. Like all the things, all the antagonists for the muscle group you want to activate, you would stretch those to relax them so they're not getting in the way.
Interesting. Ooh, I like that. That's cool. Yeah, and I can see just even being on the project, because I was gripped also. Even though I was on a rope, it's so funny. Like I was on a rope. There's no like actual risk, but just like being up high and trying these moves, and it was like wet, and like I was basically just trying to squeeze as hard as I could on everything. And so it makes sense that as I have a little bit more repetition on that, gain a little bit more confidence and comfort, I'll be able to like stick a move and then relax enough to move into the next move. But it is, it's pretty full on. It feels like, and even watching videos of strong boulderers on it, it's pretty full on, like compression-y problem from start to finish. There, it doesn't seem to be at this point a place where one kind of relaxes. And I'm very accustomed to that as predominantly a route climber, where I can try really hard for a couple of moves, but then I can find something to like relax and shake, or at least just like compose myself. And this one, it's kind of like, 8 really hard moves, and then you're doing the slab top out.
Depending on, like, I find like compression to be, I don't know, the most fun version of bouldering. I'm not really a crimper, but you get to do these really nice flows of like, you're still trying hard the entire time, but maybe you get to a point where like your heel hook and your hips are in a position that allows you to like move more accurately or slowly. You're not just like stabbing or slapping, you're like kind of floating in or popping into a hold, and you're setting yourself well. But the try hard is different. It could sometimes be like a precision thing, or it could just be an all out like limit move. But you kind of flow in this way of like it ramping in and out of being like really, really difficult, or just really, really accurate or precise, or like measured, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be a cool process for me. I can already tell like this thing's going to teach me a lot, and it could be a long-standing project. We'll see, but I'm very happy with the progress that I've made so far, and then just to push myself out of my comfort zone and keep learning will be good. And it'll be very complemented by this Kilter session that we're going to dip into now that I'm adding the aux holds, which will become the full ride. So for people who are listening, I know it might be a little bit confusing because I use a few different vernaculars, and I think Kilter is still trying to work out a few different vernaculars as well. But the wall that I have was formerly called the Kilter Home Wall. It was designed, as you remember, the episode that we had with Kevin and Jackie a while ago. It was originally kind of internally designed as the Kilter Hard. And so it's like harder, smaller holds for the most part. It's a very dense hold set, a little less jumpy than maybe the OG that you're used to at the gym. And then it has 2 hold sets. There's the mainline holds, which is what I have up currently and what I've been climbing on for the past block. And then the auxiliary hold set, or they call them the aux holds, which then doubles the hold set. And those are the ones Kevin described as like a little bit thinner and smaller and, more kind of technical feet and that kind of thing. And so internally, when you have both of the hold sets up, they had been calling it the full ride. Now it's also referred to as the Kilter full ride with either the mainline or the aux or both hold sets. So anyway, apologies if I've contributed to any of that confusion, but the long and the short of it is it's badass. It's built to like really pack a punch in a smaller space like I have. And I've only been working out on half the holds, and it has been an incredible tool for me as a climber. And I've talked about this on other episodes, and I know I've texted you from time to time, Kevin, as well. But the translation of this work that we've been doing to my route climbing has blown my mind this season. I just didn't have any expectation because I haven't been training endurance much at all, aside from getting out on routes. A little bit here and there, on like a tread wall or that kind of thing. But for the most part, I've just been sticking to my 2 Kilter sessions a week. And I've gone out and sent projects like endurance projects, power endurance projects, routes, sport routes from 100 feet to a really punchy like 55 footer, hard grades for me. and I've sent them like faster than I ever would have thought that I could. And every individual move just feels so much easier this season compared to last season. And I kind of think of myself as an endurance climber. I'm at the Red River Gorge and I'm always trying to like build up my endurance, which I get psyched on. But I think like the low hanging fruit for me was definitely just like making every move feel easier so that I didn't need to recover as much when I got to the rest. And that was like just such a kind of delightful surprise that's come up because I had one of the best sport climbing seasons ever of my life. And almost all of my training has been on my 10x10 kilter in my basement.
Yeah. But one of the guys that really taught me about training, like he would always say, like, if you want to get better at endurance, get stronger. But like endurance is, it all breaks down to energy systems like phosphagen, glycolytic. I think we've talked about oxidative, all these fun things, but they all kind of work in a percentage of your max is like the idea. And if, 50% is where the oxidative system kicks in and you're able to relax more and use energy more efficiently, but slower. If, you make your 50% a heavier weight than it was initially, like you're gonna be able to go longer.
Yeah, and that echoes conversations that I've had with athletes on this show for sure, who have said, even just recently, Tom Randall, who's working on a huge endurance project, like a mega Mason Earl crack climb in the desert called Stranger Than Fiction. His predominant training this season was bouldering and like getting stronger as a boulderer so that, every move could feel easier. And I've had conversations with many other pros on this show that echo that. And so to experience that myself was really cool because especially the Red with its reputation of just being like paddling for days and the biggest holds you'll ever fall off of and all that, having not done a ton of focused endurance training and gone in there and like hiked climbs and then maybe projected shorter than expected climbs in a way that I never could have done last year was really a delightful surprise. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this next block. Now we're moving into the wintertime here. And so predominantly my outdoor focus is going to be on boulders. So I've got Bulldog at the Red. There's also a climbing area called the Cove stays really warm in the cold the way that it collects the sun. And there's a couple other local bouldering areas. Looking to do a trip down to Chattanooga. I've got a trip on the books to Red Rock in January. So, bouldering outdoors is going to be 90% of the focus. And then every once in a while, I might grab a rope session if the stars align. So that'll be, at least probably into March where we're at with this current training block, as well as my goals outside. You noted that you're going to be doing some complementary conditioning as well. Can you give me a little overview of what to expect with that?
I'll end up throwing out random large words. So it's this idea this guy Cal Dietz came up with, but it uses block periodization and an undulating model to increase power. That's triphasic. So you basically focus on improving one aspect of movement each 3-week block. So the first 3-week block is based around like really hammering at the eccentric so that you basically hinder the Golgi tendon organ and allow for yourself to like handle a greater load. And the next block is based around like beating down the eccentric so that you have a greater motor unit recruitment in a certain position so that when you catch a hold, you're not sagging into that point. And then the last is just explosive power with concentric. And then they all kind of stack onto each other nicely, like each week, each block. It's very focused, so it's not a ton of volume. So you're able to do it while doing an outdoor session a lot. Like I've been using it on myself for the past 6 weeks, able to get outside during the day or evening, and then, get back, be able to fit that in and then call it good.
And so, this is all off the wall conditioning that you're talking about. So like we'll have a block, like a 3-week block that has me using dumbbells or kettlebells or like what's the...
It'll be based around either a one-arm pull-down machine, lat pull-down machine, weighted pull-up, and then antagonists like to balance you out and keep any tendonitis at bay, keep your shoulders strong. But it's really just essentially one exercise targeted at that one specific part of the movement. And then the rest is to balance you out.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, it sounds weird and I love a good experiment. So I'm psyched to explore that. And we'll do another episode, sometime in kind of early 2026 where we can check in on how all this is going. As always, I'm very grateful for the amount of time that you're putting into creating these plans and checking in on me. I'm really happy how that first block went, and some really good key takeaways from that second assessment on hopefully how I can come into this next block with a refocused and more, I guess, open and process-oriented mindset. So I'll be working on that. I'll be getting outside quite a bit here as well. And I guess the next step up for me is to try to find some buddies who can come over and help me put 195 more holds up on this board. It's a lot of work.
It'll go faster than you think.
It will if I can get a few friends out here to help me. Well, I've got plenty of unfinished business on the mainline hold set right now that I would be happy to go back and try to clean up. So I will plan then kind of like late December here, or we'll just coordinate on it. But like I'll plan to get the holds up so that we can do that assessment prior to obviously starting the training block in early January.
Yeah.
Good, man. Well, I'm psyched. Well, what about you? You're heading to Yosemite today, tomorrow?
Tomorrow. I'll head to Yosemite tomorrow afternoon for a couple days, and then back to Tahoe. Maybe actually get out this afternoon. It's unseasonably dry here, so just going to take as much advantage as possible.
Well, it's good for you, bad for the skiers. I know Emily Harrington and Adrian Ballinger live in Tahoe there, and they're climbers, but also I think they're hoping for like a lot of powder to come in soon. But as long as it holds off, you're good.
I'd be psyched for some, just not quite yet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm grateful for it, dude. I'm so excited. The progress that I've made in just a few months on this thing has truly blown my mind in terms of my route climbing at the Red, but also just how I feel, my strength, and the psych. Like, just I'm so psyched to have sessions on this thing. So I really appreciate the support and the partnership, and we'll just dive into the new year with a renewed focus and hopefully bag some big climbs outside as well.
Nice. Sounds good.
All right, there you have it. That wraps up this Road to V8, the final Road to V8 episode for 2025. Will I do the V8 in 2026? Will I do a V7 or a V6 or a V5? I guess stay tuned and find out, because I haven't done a whole lot of bouldering outside. The hardest boulder, true boulder, that I've ever done outside, I think, is a V4 in Leavenworth. Maybe I've done a V5. I'll have to go back and check. I guess, really the hardest boulder that I've done was with a rope on. It's called Maisie May, which is like kind of a V6. And you all know about that because I've shared about that. But the true, put pads out and climb a boulder outside, I've got some ways to go. But I do think that grade will be achievable for me in 2026, because most of the training that I've been doing is inside on the Kilter, and I'm seeing such good progress. As you heard, Kevin was very supportive. He sees maybe more progress in me than I see in myself, but I definitely see the progress in myself as well. And it's being reflected out on routes, and now I need to reflect it out on the boulders. So I am going to continue to push myself to say no to the sport climbing invites that I'm getting from my friends right now. Oh, it's so nice though. Like, I know I mentioned it was snowing at the beginning of this episode here, but like just looking at the forecast for this week, like when this episode comes out, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, it's looking like high 40s and sunny. Those are really good Red River Gorge climbing days. But no, Ryan, no. Get out on the boulders, because those will be good bouldering days too. Just need to find that psych. And so, yeah, I'm going to be looking for some friends, people who might want to come out and session on Bulldog or at Foxtown Boulders, which is another bouldering area kind of within striking distance, day trip striking distance of Louisville, which is very helpful for me. Yeah, much easier for me to do that than to like get away for a weekend to Chattanooga, which I'm still planning to do. It's just tougher with the holidays right here. But in the new year, bouldering trips on the books and day trips definitely happening. And if I can squeeze in a little, rope climbing, like after I go work on Bulldog for half a day, go and get on some routes, then I think that's fair. I think I'll allow myself the indulgence of putting a rope on after I try on the Asana pads for a while. So anyway, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think after hearing this episode and this conversation with Kevin and where I'm at. I just get stoked. It's you guys are awesome. I'm on this journey right alongside you. And so I'd love to hear what road you're on, but also if you got any thoughts on where I'm at, hit me up on Instagram or over on Patreon. And holy smokes, lots of you signing up for Patreon over the past few weeks. I think because maybe that pro clinic with Tyler Nelson was such a banger. A lot of people wanted to get the full episode of that. Couldn't recommend that episode more. It has totally changed the way that I have structured my week with regard to strength training, power training, and then climbing. So if you're here because you are new to Patreon, welcome. And if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's how I pay the bills over here. So for those of you who have signed up and who are giving me $5 or $7 a month, even if you're only here for a few months or whatever, I really appreciate it. And I'm about to launch this strength cohort for 2026, for the first few months of 2026, where it's going to be like this kind of accountability, motivation cohort of people who just want to get strong, who have goals, and want to have a crew along their side to help keep the stoke high and have a little bit of that accountability. And so the interest on that has been like way, way higher than I would have thought it was going to be perfectly honest, which makes me really happy because I want that motivation and support and accountability as well. So I am going to be announcing that very shortly over on Patreon, and free members, you can see that announcement as well. So swing over to thestruggleclimbingshow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/thestruggleclimbingshow. I think either of those will take you there. And that's where you can get access to over 140 hours of bonus content and ad-free episodes and pro clinics, but also you can check out what I'm going to be launching with this strength cohort. And I really appreciate your support. Truly, I could not make this show without the support of Patreon members who allow me to do this and pay for all the things that I have to pay for in order to make this show happen. So thanks for doing it. Thanks also to Philippa and to Glenn and to Haley and to everybody else who has worked and continues to work to help me to make this show, people that I pay, and you are awesome. So thank you. You guys are the best. And who else? Oh, the sponsors of this show. So that's Fizzy Vantage and the Pitch 6 Force Board. Oh, get those strong fingers. The Force Board has been an incredible tool for me to train my fingers and keep track of all of that progress. So I couldn't recommend that enough. And then Fizzy Vantage goes hand in hand with that because I've been taking their supercharged collagen before every finger training and climbing session. And I have not had any injuries, even though I'm pushing myself harder than I have ever pushed myself. And now in my mid-40s, that's pretty dang impressive. So just have so much good things to say about both of those sponsors. And then all the other sponsors that support the show, all those brands, you can learn more and get incredible discounts from them over at thestruggleclimbingshow.com/deals. Get that Christmas shopping done. Start the new year off right with some good deals and discounts and all that stuff. Okay, that's probably enough from me. You know what I'll do? I'm going to do a plug episode before the end of this year, and that's where I will break down in very fine detail everything that I've been doing lately with my training, and that's on the wall as well as off the wall training, and I am feeling so good. I'm excited to share that. So I will share that in the plug in the next week or two here, and in the meantime, you can get in touch with me over on Patreon or on Instagram, and I'd love to hear from you. And like I said at the top of the episode, I hope you're having a really wonderful holiday season. I'm sending you so much love and so much gratitude. Thank you for supporting me on my climbing journey and also on my podcasting journey. It's really awesome. And I hope you're having a wonderful journey on your climbing, training, personal life, work journeys as well. It is a season to be thankful. I'm thankful for you. Have an awesome day, and I will see you soon.